Hello, everyone. My name is Lior. I'm going to moderate today. And so, just first, I'd like to start off by saying that the meeting is being recorded. So, um, if you're not comfortable with it being recorded, please drop off. Um, and then I'll go over the agenda for today. So, today we're going to, celebrate the release being live. Hooray. Good job, everyone. And discuss KubeCon EU 2023 CFP. And
So for the new release, oh yeah, also if you can write your name on the attendees like you. But yeah, we cut the release yesterday, I think, for the main code. And obviously this includes big changes like the configuration level resource support, authenticating on-viv cameras, and filtering and things like that. So thank you all for all the great work. You can read the full, change log in the release notes. And then as for the docs, I think there is one PR that is pending. Johnson just added the PR to document the configuration level resource support. And I think Nicholas approved it already. So I can definitely go ahead and make a release for the docs as well because it's been a while. So yeah, thank you everyone. Does anyone have any questions or discussion that they'd like to bring to the table about the release?
Well, I wanted to maybe we could also celebrate the 1,000 stars, but we're off by 2, so not this time.
to wait a little bit.
I'll
We
ping a
went
couple
from
people right now.
I was
Let's
gonna
get
say.
1,000 by the end of the meeting. I'm gonna make this happen.
Already started.
Um, okay, so now I guess we can just talk about the KubeCon EU CFPs. So Nicholas, I know he mentioned this because I think the CFP submission, is it already open or it opens next month? Or is it?
It's already open. It opened like mm, uh, mid-September, I think, and it's meant to. Well, it's supposed to close at the end of November, if my memory is correct. So yeah, I plan on submitting one, and with the purpose of getting around everything we plan for the version 1 release. So basically all the API changes we envision in current proposals, and everything related to the array, and basically also what our goals are for the V1. So kind of a, I'd say, summary of the road for Akri to V1. So anyone want to, if anyone want to join on that or have other ideas.
So just the general concept of what do we feel like is required for version 1 of Akri? Just a discussion around that right now.
Yeah, that's kind of. I think we already mentioned that a few months back, but yeah, what we want in V1, and if well, I think that's a pretty nice topic for CFP, because by I hope that by KubeCon Europe 2023 will be, well, close to V1, or at least have a clear path to it. So it seems like a good topic for this.
And I think it'd be good for Edge Day and regular full day. Throw it at both of them.
Yeah, there's apparently a edge, well, kind of edge related track in the main event, so that's what I'm targeting.
I'd say let's submit it to both. It's likely two different audiences to some extent.
Just a curiosity on that, is the catch or the hook of why people are going to want to go to the talk is that Akri's finally at V1? Like, is there like a prerequisite that people know what Akri is, or is it going to be kind of a zoom out of this is what it takes to get to a project to version 1 or stable, and this is the process we went down?
My idea was more raising awareness about Akri, so I was going to aim that in a way that Akri V1, what to expect as changes for discovering devices in Kubernetes world, and going to first a presentation of what is Akri, and then what we expect as change from what we have to what is in V1, and what's new in V1, what is possible to do. So basically more like see this as a way to promote Akri as well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
If we have time, we can also maybe try to record like a short demo of like the new features just to include at the end. But yeah, I don't know how much time we'll have left after we make those implementations, but I think demos are always cool. And yeah, I'm happy to also help out with the CFP and collaborate if you want. And yeah, so for the V1, we're just saying everything that's in the proposals. That's what we're going to implement, and that's what's going to be V1, right? Do we have anything else like, I know, yeah, Johnson and I did like like kind of an update on the threat model. And so I think those would be good benchmarks as well for security. And I know in a previous proposal or HackMD that I was reading about Akri V1, I know we also talked about doing some performance testing and benchmarking. So I think that would also be pretty useful to have those numbers of the, V1.
Is the new threat
Yeah.
model y'all did uploaded onto the docs?
So I just started a HackMD and I pasted in the PNG, but it's a .tm7 file. Is there like a good way for me to upload that somewhere? I'll find a way. I can just paste in the picture for now. And then I can kind of list out the security proposals that we kind of got from this modeling exercise, and I can share that once I have it.
Yeah, I would suggest just uploading the source files for it into just Akri repo or the Box repo.
I think we can just check in the threat modeling file to Akri repo, And then the threat monitoring tool is public. It's a public software, so whoever interested about that can download the software and get it. Yeah, and also we have a PNG file, so that can be kind of copy paste to in the document.
I've seen projects where they upload the source to generate the diagram, and then the diagram is the rendered diagram, which I think is a nice way to do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you can put an action item on me to upload that.
For the topic of V1, should we have a project board or a milestone just for V1 so we can start tracking what is for V1 so we can
Yeah,
tag
I
like
think a project is better suited because we have both proposals and maybe issues, so it can be cross repo. Oh, one of the subject that will come is what do we pick as a name for replacement of broker?
Do you have any ideas for that?
Well, I was wondering whether we would go for something very descriptive, something kind of like device workload, or something completely abstract, but that makes sure that we don't end up confusing with something else. And I was proposing something like Spore, basically the things that plants are deploying.
Right.
But
Fungus.
yeah.
Cool.
I like the concept of something like Spore. The only thing I feel around that is that our brand doesn't really have anything like spory about it currently. Like I wish we were like a tree was our logo and that would be so simple. Um, but because that's not the case, it seems hard to work Spore into the picture.
You got to keep it
I
canonical.
might see
theme.
like that as well for like networking attachments, and yeah. There's actually a really good brand there that you could do going all fungal.
Yeah, like mycelium network searching for food or whatever.
So I think we could set up some kind of poll or something to get ideas and settle on one. Currently, I'm implementing the split of resources into two, and at the same time doing an implementation of abstract, well, not abstract, arbitrary resource scheduling, because, well, as I'm touching at how we schedule things, I wonder that the two could be done at the same time. So for now, I went with Spore. So when the PR gets posted, it will be Spore in this, but it's more like a placeholder that can be easily spotted and replaced. So it's not settled.
Another thing we may want to consider doing for V1 is dividing our repositories up more. It's something we've talked about a fair bit, but we're talking about the security side of things. I think we get CVs on things that are our sample apps, for example, that shouldn't be reflective of the state of the project, and it would be nice to pull that out.
Right.
I agree. We just have to figure out how we can set up some kind of well, release process and build process that works around multiple repositories.
Would it make sense to have it as like a submodule, or I guess that would still cause CVs for sample apps?
Yeah.
Mm,
I think just the samples repo
Yeah, think that makes
is
sense.
cleaner for that, but I think it might also be useful to like pull even the discovery handlers out as well. Because I mean, I would assume that in production, most people would be using some customization of either our discovery handlers or their own, right?
And do we want to keep the embedded interface, the embedded discovery handler interface, or we want to deprecate that in V1?
I think there should be a way to move the discovery handlers into separate projects in a way that they're REST crates that we can import still somehow. If we think about it, I don't know, it might be a little tricky, but I think we could still have the Akri full because I feel like that is something that people want. But maybe doing this will help us make that more custom potentially. So that you kind of choose
Could
what makes
Akri
your Akri
fold
full.
just could Akri fold just I mean, could they be separate containers but just all shoved into the same pod? To
Definitely. But from my understanding, the idea was people wanted it to have like the small one binary benefit of it, but
which is nice, especially in resource constrained hardware.
I don't know how big they or binaries are for this. I don't always look at the size.
How much work would it be to build both, run it, and see if there's actually any measurable or worthwhile difference in resource consumption at rest, or even while using it? Just thinking that if it's basically negligible, then it's probably not worth maintaining. But if there is actual like measurable and worthwhile difference, then it is definitely worth maintaining, right?
Yeah, especially since well, from my point of view, Akri full is complicated because currently we only test with Akri, well, small, and so with containerized, separate discovery handlers for the end-to-end test, for example. So I don't know how well tested the the embedded discovery handler system is going to be. For example, did we even test that the embedded discovery handler work with discovery properties and authentication? I don't know.
I think that's a good point. I'm happy to take a look at if there's a way for us to move them out of the repository and still maybe behind a feature flag build Akri full, bringing them in as crates. And then we can have that backwards compatibility and potentially more composability. But maybe we don't build Akri full anymore for people, but we provide a way for them to build it still using this crate system.
Yeah, this looks like a nice idea. We could even have some kind of documentation on how to embed your own discovery handler if you still want to go on that path. If this makes sense. Oh, on the same subject, I was wondering whether I think we should be publishing the Discovery Handler Utils, I think it's the name. The library we use to build Discovery Handler, to publish that on crates, because currently we use well, the Discovery Handler template use Git's repository dependency, so that's not very suited for production and everything. So having it published on crates.io would be nice.
Are there any other agenda items anyone wants to add that weren't listed for the meeting?
Along with the V1 stuff, I think it's worth asking if are there any other API changes that we see in the future that should be pulled forward? Today, but like something we should make sure that we
I
think through.
recall that there is one proposal for to extend the agent. So I put it in the chat window. I'm not sure if we consider do this, and then this will change the agent, the gRPC service hosted by agent. So it might be a candidate for V1 if we want to do this.
I can take an action item to read through that.
Do we have this might be for V2, but has there been any feedback or concern about the connectivity of discovery handlers? So twofold there. One being having a discovery handler on every node is something that's been brought up by people. So for example, for network-based discovery like OPC UA, should we just have one discovery handler for the cluster? And then a follow-up is like, do we want to reevaluate that discovery handler interface at some point and break it? And we already have so much for V1, so maybe that would be V2. But for example, discover being like a bidirectional stream, should it be more push? Or so just that might be something we want to consider breaking in the future based on feedback.
It makes sense. I know one of the things I've been trying to think through is how do you do network-based discovery when you have multis and you have potentially different VLANs? or physical lands. And because I just see that becoming significantly more complicated very quickly.
You mean that you will have specific needs for a device consumer to be able to access the device, or that just some nodes would be able to access it?
Oh. Its networking is complicated.
Currently, my idea was to keep one discovery handler per node to exactly handle the fact that not every node could be able to communicate with the device. So even if we have network devices, we still need to be able to tell what nodes are able uh, to contact the device. So that was my point for keeping one per node currently. But yeah, this is something that could be nonsensical for some discovery handlers. Like for example, it was pulled out for the MQTT discovery handler, where basically the MQTT broker could be part of the cluster, so it doesn't make sense to have only some of the nodes be able to talk to the broker.
Imagine it's going to be different for each broker, right? On what its ingress is for that type of device.
But yes, I think that this could be handled in a later version, because, well, currently we don't have any issue with having one per node, except that maybe it's a bit heavyweight for some purposes, but we are not even sure of that. So I think it makes sense to postpone that until we have complaints of one per node is not convenient.
The places where one per node, I guess the falling down is, and I think this is mentioned in one of these tickets already. Yeah, it's like, how do you make sure, like, I feel like there's a lot of race conditions that we'll run into, right? So how do you make sure that stuff doesn't start churning? I guess it's a better word. B2 it is.
Well, we currently have, well, when it takes one discovery handler to bring up an instance, but it needs to have no longer any discovery handler discovering a device to remove it. So race would be unlikely with multiple discovery handlers. But yeah, if we only have one, we could have some kind of strange behavior where we have the workload scheduled on a node that have a different path to the device and then could fail differently than the one for the discovery handler. But otherwise, I don't see very much what could happen better in single discovery handler thing, because, well, I don't see any case where having less discovery handlers is better, unless we just talk about resource consumption.
Yeah, I think one thing I was thinking about is it could potentially be that a discovery handler, instead of having to be a constant connection, during which if the connection drops, it's assumed the devices are gone. Instead, we could do kind of discovery handlers that are cron jobs, and then people can configure how long is too long for them. So say you're really constrained and you expect that the assumption is that the devices are already always online, and that them not being online isn't as big of a deal as it is to constantly be churning to look for them. So maybe your cron is every 2 minutes or something like that. That would be interesting. And then discovery handlers, instead of just sending updates, they send state of the world every time. And being offline means you're no longer a part of the state of the world.
I like that. That also cleans up some of the OPC concerns that I forget. I was talking to somebody from the OPC Foundation, and they brought up a concern of the OPC UA discovery shouldn't be just like constantly running. Is that apparently there are potential security vulnerabilities there. And so having that be a cron job, I think, is cleans that up as well. And you could always, yeah, and then it would be up to the discovery handler, right? Then you could have one that is always running and just sending state of the world whenever there's a change.
Regardless, it sounds like we might want to configure the discovery rate or make it clearer how to do that.
And for some cases, it would make more sense to have a constantly running one that is basically, let's say, listening to events, because some protocols work like this. You can list, you just listen to what's happening. But yeah, I don't think there's a single answer to that.
Yeah, I think as long as the contract between the agent and the discovery handler allows for both, then it would be up to the author, the discovery handler, on how to fulfill it. But I like the ability to not allowing for not having to force a constant connection would be really nice.
So sounds like we need to extend the registration service interface. So the discovery handler will describe what kind of behavior it will to let the agent know. So the discovery handler might be, I will just run once and then go away. And the reported devices will be like a long run, will not disconnected kind of OPCUA. Then they don't need to, the OPCUA discovery handler doesn't need to run at all time, and agent need to understand their behavior. Because agent right now, agent will treat if the discovery handler is gone, then after a grace period, it will just wipe out all the discovery instance.
Yeah, and I think there's a chance that could live in the registration service. I also think one of the ways this could be done is for example, for cron, we probably don't want the agent calling discover on something that it doesn't know when it's going to be there. So in that case, it would more be the agent has another service that is available to receive, and it'll validate that upon receiving that you've registered before accepting the message. But I think that kind of mechanism is more common in edge scenarios anyways. So that might be a good fit as well for that reason.
Yeah, I
It
think
also means that we can have two APIs at the same time. It gives a really clean migration. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think the PR that I pasted in the chat windows some in some degree will also can serve as the purpose.
Well, I'm thinking about it, but if we only have the, even if we only have the, let's say, push way that the discovery handler is basically connecting periodically to the agent and sending state of the world, then it would, for all the cases where the protocol is listening to events, it would just be up to the discovery handler to maintain a state. That way we don't have to keep the logic of both full states, sets, and events in the system. Well, I don't even think we have events going back to the agent. I think we already have this, and it's just that every time the discovery handler sends a message, it sends all the available instances already, just in a stream.
So I think actually has another issue as well, in that that payload could get very large very quickly, or at least maybe larger than we would want it to. But that's a secondary issue.
So it sounds like we have a lot of stuff that we want to do. A lot of things that are definitely V1, a lot of things that are arguably V1. Do we want to have a V1 project board, or do we want to use our normal project board and kind of add a V1 column? How do you want to keep track of this?
I think a V1 project would be better, because that way we can classify what is done in progress, what is basically just, we don't know if it's going to be V1 or V2 or V1.5 or whatever. Because the overall, the API stability promise for a stable release is more like we can add more things, but we cannot remove them. So as long as we have, well, we need to make sure that we don't want to remove or change behavior that exists, but we can always add more, and I'd say knobs to add more features later on without having to do a major version.
Speaking of versioning, do we want to talk about versioning? And what to do about how it is really annoying having to bump the version when you're working on a PR and kind of this issue that you've been leading, Nicholas?
Yeah, so for this one, it's annoying and it's also error prone the way we currently do, because when you have two PR that basically do the same kind of version change, then if you want to merge them both, then it's going to be not ideal. And the alternatives are, well, there are some that are nice, and something I noticed is to some people the way we version our stable release, well, yeah, or I'd say public releases, is strange because we kind of skip numbers, so they wonder what happened to the in-between releases. And so these are the kind of questions that arise for designing a new versioning scheme. My idea was to make all dev releases pre-release, like in -rc something, but that means that you need to be able to compute the next version, and for that you need a way to tell what is what kind of change, just from looking at the PR or looking at the commits.
So could we move to a linear versioning system and do it that way? Like if we agree to do a linear versioning system, every time you merge a PR, it's -rc commit number. And then when we roll out a release, whenever we make a formal release, then we cut the next number.
Yeah, but the issue with that is for all versioning system I know of, including um, Helm, a -rc is lower than without -rc. So basically that means that if we have v1-rc1, it's lower than v1. And so if we make up then we need to compute the next version, and we need to know what kind of, well, if it's a patch or a minor or a major, to know what will be the next release.
Is it fine to just assume the next release will be a minor release always? Because say it is a major release, we make that minor release still and then bump a major release. I think we've been quite particular on the per PR change about whether the individual PR is major or minor, but if we stop focusing on individual PRs and focus more on like project releases and whether that's major or minor, and just say if it's not a formal release, you're on dev, the end, like that might help simplify the story.
Yeah.
Dev with a commit number.
That look like a good idea.
Like we could say our next number is 0.13. Like say we implement this now, 0.13, and then every PR that merges is 0.13.0 RC commit number. And then in a month, say on a monthly cadence, we cut 0.13 and then bump to 0.14 RC and go that way.
Then we never publish patch releases. And it doesn't really matter if we don't, but yeah.
You're saying we never publish like intermediate like Helm charts, like dev ones?
No, it's more like if we make a change that is just bug fix, then we are going to publish minor and not patch, but that's maybe just semantic.
I think that's still fine. And maybe patch releases could be like CV fixes or something like that with no other anything else, and then that would always be manual anyway. Because it would be embargoed most of the time, I think. Well, could be
Well, I see it
embargoed.
as say like we're at 0.13.0 RC commit and we found a bug and we merged it, then we cut a release of 0.13.0 or like or we cut a release at that point of 0.12.1 or whatever it was at that, like we cut a patch release that we add to our previous release.
Yeah, that's, or maybe we just say that we bump the patch version instead of always minor, and if we are bumping if we are doing a minor release, when we cut the release we bump to minor, and if we, it's basically the same but just shifted. Or we just say that we don't care about patch release and we just do 2-number versioning, because we are not maintaining version for, well, we're not doing backports or anything, so
Yeah, for context, this is exactly how the spin project works, like this versioning system we've been talking through, and we cut patch releases. Like we'll be currently at like 0.6 pre-release, and we'll still be able to cut like backwards 1.5 patch releases. So I can try and dig into our release process more to understand how we're doing that. But I know it's doable to be able to, even if you're on like the RC for the future, like minor version, you can still cut patch releases on the previous minor version.
yeah, usually this works using branches or things like that, because when you just want to cut a previous release, it's usually because you backport patches or something. But that's another, I'd say, commitment to say that we would want to support older versions, but I don't know how we want to deal with that. Maybe we could say that we don't go further than the previous release for patch releases. But yeah, if we do that, we need to have some kind of policy that says we don't support more than this version, because otherwise we're going to have someone to just come and ask. I have this version that is 2 or 3 version old, and I haven't got the patch for this bug.
Yeah, I think you just listed off another thing that is probably what we should get when we go into V1 is like, what is our support policy around bugs?
For this, my personal, I'd say, SUSE hat thing is more like I'd be maintaining whatever version SUSE published anyway. So, but I don't think we want that to be the standard for upstream.
No, and for the SUSE has a policy of upstream first, so this shouldn't ever be an issue, but there's always the case that we have to maintain something short term, right? And I assume the same is the same for
I was
Microsoft.
more talking about backporting patches that land upstream. Oh well, that
So,
land
then,
in
yeah, then
main.
basically never be an issue, I think. Be very surprised. So I was trying to find out what they actually call it, but like I mean, we could just not, we could basically keep all of the releases as pre-release, except the ones that we QA enough, right? And so we just go with the 2-number versioning, and then just don't set the stable flag or whatever GitHub calls it.
So essentially, like everything that merges becomes like 0.13.0 pre, and we just keep rebuilding that container. So you never get an intermediate, you always get the
Or just keep
latest.
on bumping the number. Yeah.
Okay.
For every PR that merges, just bump the number, but then don't tag them as, sorry, I'm trying to find an example so I can actually, they're
Currently, all Akri releases are set as pre-releases.
well, then
So
I guess we just
that's
wouldn't set the ones that we think are good enough,
yeah.
right? I need to read the spin doc that you just sent, but because I mean we basically want to be able to communicate to the community which version to use, right? At any point in time, you should be able to go and say, okay, I want to use, here's the latest, or here is the cutting edge, right? Can I get a build off of head, or can I get a build that has that we're actually answering issues on, right?
I think that's the idea between pre-versions and say release versions. But yeah, either way, we I kind of like the idea of just not using the patch number anymore because, well, it would make it easier for everyone to keep up with. Well, we won't have to bother of whether this is a PR that is a patch or a PR that is a feature or anything. We just have to ensure that it doesn't break anything, or else it would be a major. But that's something we would already be taking care of, I think.
So you're saying nothing to distinguish one PR merge with another. They're all like pre-zero. And we just cut releases more frequently.
Yeah, or pre-0, pre-1 for every PR that merge.
Okay, so you do want to increment that. But how do we increment that in a way that we can make sure there's not conflicts there? That's why I like the commit name, the commit number, because we know that's universally unique instead of like pre-one could conflict with maybe our CI system can make sure that those don't conflict, but I feel like we still have a race case there.
Yeah, the commit number is, well, since we are squashing commits when merging, the commit number should be the same number as the PR number. So yeah, that's probably uh, good enough to use the, well, yeah, the commit number is enough, I think. Maybe this would go with whatever we move to as a build system as well, because maybe we would have some kind of constraints about how we give that build system the version number, but we don't know yet. So
Yeah, I think this will make it easier actually to separate out the repositories if we don't care about having a new version for every single merge, because then our discovery handlers can be, you know, on the same version. And we just cut a new version of everything when we have a release. So
we still keep the different version in sync. So when we cut a release of, I'd say, Akri controller or Akri agent, we always release a discovery handler, or we consider them as two different release processes, and they can have their, well, live, I'd say, their own life. Like, could we have the will of, say, cutting a release for discovery handlers, but not for the agent and the controller? So, for example, we want to publish a fix for a discovery handler, but we didn't make any change to the agent or the controller.
to me, that's just the managing of our Helm charts as well. Because the Helm chart decides what discovery handler to deploy. I do think it'd be nice to keep those versions similar so that as a user you could know, like, this discovery handler version works with this agent. Maybe it'd be nice to start with that goal of keeping them aligned versioned, but if it
Yeah,
becomes
this is simpler. Well, simpler for the cut releases, not for the pre-releases, because for the pre-releases, the commit number wouldn't be the same if there's two repos.
So I think we're over. Is there anything else that folks wanted to bring up?
Oh, just a thing. Last time we said we wanted to create a project to migrate all the issues that were currently tracked in the classic project on the repository and move that to an org wide new kind of GitHub project. Apparently, there's some kind of migration tool that is available to repository owners only, well, to org owners only. So maybe you, Kate, or Eugene can take a look at that.
Just to clarify, it's basically our current project board's the old GitHub one that's scoped only to a repository, and we want to create the new one so that we could have like Akri docs and everything in one board. And we just need
Yeah.
to press a migration tool that we should look into.
Yeah, apparently there's a migration tool that is available in org or project settings, but I don't have access to that, so I can check.
All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can take that on. I'll put that on me. Also, we got 2,000 stars and we got renewed as a sandbox project. So, ding, 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 ding.
Yay. Big milestones. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Good meeting. See you in a month.
Oh,
Alright.
last thing. In a month, this will be the first Tuesday is going to be during KubeCon North America, I think.
Isn't that the second week? 5th through the 8th? Ooh,
The
maybe
month
not.
starts on Wednesday,
Oh, nice. Okay.
so it will be during KubeCon. So I don't know if we are going to be able to have it at
Who all
that.
here's going to be at KubeCon?
I think
Uh,
Yeah, I'm tried to get you there and failed miserably. Yeah, it's not very hard for them.
Well, maybe we move this back 1 week then.
Yeah.
You know, we should all meet up though.
Alright.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. Cool. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.